Hello everyone and welcome to Inked Happiness YouTube channel. Today we have with us Mr. Suparna Pathak, a noted journalist. Welcome sir.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you sir. Let's get started with this interview. So you are one of the few journalists who have always sported fountain pens. What are you carrying today?
I am carrying a bunch of them right now, and all my fountain pens are in my laptop bags. But the the most notable one would be a Bohème. Right now, this is my usual carry. I always have this with me.
Okay.
So there's a Bohème, and I have a few other Indian pens as well. And then I have a Parker, and then I have a Sheaffers, and of course the Lamy 2K. Yeah. So and well, that's it. These are my usual carry, and each pen has a different colored ink.
Okay. 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 So how long have you been collecting fountain pens?
I am not a fountain pen collector. I am a user of fountain pens. I have been using fountain pens since my school days, and in fact, strangely, I still have and I still use the pens that I used to use during my school days.
Wow, that's lovely. So, what do you think about the Indian fountain pen industry?
Well, I have a point here. I use a few Indian pens. Uh, the ones that work, and ones that do not work, do not work. The point with Indian fountain pens is that the quality is an issue. But over a period of time, as I am noticing, pens are becoming better and better, the Indian pens. So that's it.
Okay. So, how has the industry changed throughout all these years when you have been using fountain pens?
See, I don't have a very long association with Indian fountain pens. I started my school days with two Indian pens that used to be used by every school kid during our times. And when I'm talking about my times, that was in the 60s and early 70s. And they were Glory and Artex, probably. And then later on came Wing Sung, Hero. But by the time Wing Sung and Heroes came into the market, I had already graduated to my aunts and uncles living abroad, teaching abroad. I had already graduated into Parker, the Parker student kind of stuff, which is still with me. And then well, that's it.
So, what do you think of fountain pens as a sustainable writing option?
See, this is a very difficult question to answer in the sense that fountain pens indeed in terms of environment are much better than ballpoint pens, or which are known as biro. But the issue is the mindset that we have right now sort of stalls use of fountain pen to a large extent. But what I am finding right now is that the fountain pens are coming back into use again, from just being a thing to flaunt to being stuff to use. So that's a very good sign, and that is happening notwithstanding the proliferation of laptops and the iPads. Yeah.
Okay. So, can you tell the viewers something about piano?
Okay. Piano, in a sense, is a proposal right now, and it's being formed. It's not being formed into an association. Piano aims at largely as an industry association to begin with. That is the easiest way of putting it across. But piano is more than that. You see, when you are using what is generally known as jota, you are creating a carbon footprint of stupendous proportions. The refills that you use, even the refills that are the cheapest ones, they add 10 grams per refill as a pollutant. Now, if you look at the school kids, they use the pens the most. They would be adding about one refill per fortnight, which would be about 10 grams of pollutant into the environment. Whereas fountain pens, most of the fountain pens, even if they are made from plastics or similar kind, they are for long use. As I said, the pens that I had used during the 60s and 70s are still with us. And the ink that you use, even in terms of economy, I would say that they would turn out to be much cheaper. Most of the people have this feeling that fountain pens are very expensive. Yes, they are. Like this one is expensive. I can't say that Lamy 2K is expensive, comparatively speaking. But then again, you have such pens as this one. Like, say for example, I have with me, I am carrying with me, Click, right? So this one. This one is a pretty cheap stuff.
Yes.
And it writes extremely well,
Yes.
right? And this would last you a lifetime if you use it properly. Now, there is also another issue. Most of the people think that fountain pen inks are not easily available. But one would be surprised to note that inks are available even at the local kirana shop. Whatever ink that you want to buy. The expensive inks are of course not available, but you don't really need expensive inks unless you are, an aficionado. Also, there is a feeling that if you are using fountain pens and if you are writing with it, those writing this content will not be for keeps, which again is a wrong notion. See, for example, my father, the stuff that he had written, and I'm saying Shulekha was the most popular ink in Calcutta. So my father was a royal blue user. So the stuff that he had written with royal blue is still as good as they were when he had written it. So yes, uh, some inks are washable and some inks are not. Now there is also another misconception that the inks that are of permanent variety are very expensive. No, for example, again, Shulekha comes to mind. I mean, Shulekha has one variety which has been there for the last 40 years now, and they are permanent. And there is also another view that fountain pen inks themselves are polluting because in the process, the chemical process itself pollutes the thing. But some of the inks are made with the stuff that are non-polluting. And again, the name of Shulekha comes to mind because this is from Bengal. And Shulekha has been since 1930s has been making inks from natural resources. So all these things are false notions, and I would say that fountain pens are the best stuff to use. And one story comes to mind. I mean, one of my friends had a problem with his thumb. Now, this guy is an engineer, and he had never used fountain pens. And since he had been a very strong user of laptops, except for signature, he had never used pens for a very long period of time. Saying never is a wrong word to use, wrong expression to use. So he went to his orthopedic, a very good orthopedic. So he said that the muscles on his thumb had gone to sleep, for want of a better word, and they need to be reawakened. So what would be the physiotherapy? He said, write every day of at least 2 pages. And he said, okay, all right, shall I use my... And then he looked at his pocket and found that he had a cross in his pocket. He said, don't use jotters or ballpoint pens. He said, why? He said, fountain pens, when you are writing with fountain pens, you write a bit slowly, which is true, which is good for handwriting as well. And then he said he apparently had used a strange notion. He said that when you do yoga, you get into very slow movement. You do that mainly because of the fact that your muscles are kept tensed at different positions for some time. And same thing happens when you are writing with fountain pens. And he also had made on the side a very interesting comment. He said that, do you know that fountain pens are mind relaxers? So that was a very surprising thing. And subsequently, as I kept reading post COVID, this has been experimented with in the southern India mostly. Handwriting exercises are being used as a treatment procedure for all the ravages that COVID had, wreaked in the minds of the students. So I would say I never knew all such things, of course, but I love fountain pens, and I am not quite at ease with, you know, although I carry jotters, a few ball pens as well, a couple. But fountain pens, first of all, you have a huge selection of inks to choose from. The color, I'm referring to the color. Whereas with ballpoint pens, you hardly have a choice of colors beyond, perhaps red,
Red, green, max to
green,
max.
or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
the spectrum is very narrow. Whereas for fountain pens, I have right now with me 7 pens with 7 different colors. So, and when I take down notes, I color code my notes
Wow.
with fountain pens, which would have been difficult
To do with
to do with a jotter. Yes, of course, there are 4 refill jotters available, the Japanese varieties, the Indian varieties, but you don't get that kind of a spread. Also, the kind of spectrum of nibs that are available. You can write fine, you can write extra fine, you can write medium, you can write broad, and then again you have those the flexi stuff with which you can sort of do all sorts of things if you are into calligraphy or if you want to play with your handwriting. So the kind of flexibility that a fountain pen offers is mind-boggling. So that's it. I mean, and then again, as a legacy, right? I have my father's fountain,
Okay.
so that's a legacy. So I keep telling people that, if you had written a love letter with your dot pen, the refill is gone. But if you had written your love letter with a fountain pen, the nib is still with you.
Wow. So, what does piano aim to do in
Okay,
the
all right.
Indian
We were
pen
talking about
industry?
piano,
Yes.
yeah. So I deviated from that. Okay, piano essentially uh, would be on the one hand an evangelist, in the sense that it would essentially try to promote the culture of fountain pen, bringing it back. And on the other hand, it would also act as a lobby. There are various regulatory issues that the manufacturers need to address, and unless you have a body which can do that, then it becomes difficult. Individually, you can lobby that much, and as you know, most of the fountain pen manufacturers that we have in India come from small and medium scales and not very big ones. So these are essentially the two things that piano would aim at. And of course, the third one would be trying to create a better fountain pen manufacturing culture, perhaps. As you know, it happens with all industry association. They create the environment for becoming better, because then the capacity of to reach out uh, becomes much more wider if you have an association. So that essentially is piano's objective.
Okay. Okay, sir. So, this year, Inked Happiness turns 5. So, what are your thoughts about the website?
See, I cannot talk about inked happiness without charm. Uh, there are a few things that I would like to mention. So, for example, I have been using fountain pens, and any other person who writes with pens, even if it's a largely with fountain pens, of course, or even if someone smokes. A smoker tends to collect lighters. You know, if you can afford, you can buy all sorts of lighters. A person who is in love with fountain pen and wants to write with fountain pens would necessarily go out and buy a fountain pen whenever he looks at one, and if he can afford it, he will buy it. So I was that kind of a. I am not a collector. I can't say that I have a pen which goes back 90 years in time. I don't. But I love to write with fountain pens, and I have been using fountain pens, as I am repeatedly saying. Charm, and I didn't actually know that in India there are so many manufacturers. On the contrary, I was under the belief that Indians have stopped making fountain pens. You know, if you go to Amazon or any online platform, you would see all the Chinese pens that are available. So Charm actually introduced me to Indian fountain pens, and I have started using fountain pens. For example, this one, as I said, Click. I have other fountain pen makers like Beena and all. So this pen writes really nice. It glides on paper, but as I said, that quality is indeed an issue with the thing. Now, inked happiness is what Chom has done to me. Inked happiness is doing that on a much broader level. Chom, along with others, of course, I mean, giving all the credit to Chom would be doing discredit to others who are also involved in similar vein. But what Chom has done is single-handedly taken the bull by the horns and tamed it to such an extent that right now I am talking about fountain pen on his channel, which I didn't do, I mean, a few years back. I have also written a blog for him on inked happiness. So I would say that Chom calls himself, loves to call himself an evangelist. But his passion, he has been single-handedly been able to, spread it across a wide spectrum of society, most of which are not savvy with regard to the techniques of fountain pens and the technicalities of fountain pens, but they love to write. So he is stoking the passion to a level which would also be beneficial to the industry as a whole. As for the award that he has instituted, it also is a stupendous effort, because this would be to the best of my knowledge. I mean, I cannot say that I know all, but to me, to the best of my knowledge, I think this is the only recognition of contributors to the fountain pen world of this kind. He has started recognizing the ones who are doing a lot to propagate the use of fountain pens and also the quality, the use of fountain pen and making of fountain pens. Because as you make more and more people aware, the demand also becomes different from being just quantitative in the sense that I have a fountain pen to I have a good fountain pen is a transition that India is looking forward to. By bringing this consciousness about, Chom is doing a great job.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We're extremely delighted to do this interview with you.
It was a pleasure for me. It was indeed a pleasure for me to be on this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.